Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it is January 18th, 2021, and we're in Hillsborough, North Carolina, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 23, Text 19. Chaturvidam Bahugunam Anamadaya Bhajanai Abhisaru Priyam Sarva Samudramiva Nimnaga. Chaturvidam, of the four varieties, that which is chewed, that which is drunk, that which is licked, and that which is sucked. Bahugunam, endowed with many rich tastes and fragrances. Anam, food. Adaya, bringing. Bhajanai, in large vessels. Abhisashruhu, they went forward. Priyam, to their beloved. Sarvaha, all of them. Samudram, to the ocean. Eva, just as. Nimnagaha, the rivers. BBT translation. Taking along in large vessels the four kinds of food, full of fine tastes and aromas, all the ladies went forth to meet their beloved, just as rivers flow toward the sea. BBT purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the wives of the Brahmanas experience conjugal feelings toward Krishna, as if he were their paramour. Thus they could not be checked as they rushed to see him. Chaturvidam Bahugunam Adaya Bhajanai Abhisashru Priyam Sarva Samudram Eva Nimnagaha. Taking along in large vessels the four kinds of foods full of fine taste and aromas, all the ladies went forth to meet their beloved, just as rivers flow toward the sea. So this is about a natural attraction. Rivers going toward the sea, water reaching its own level. This is this analogy from nature to describe the spontaneous attraction of the devotees toward the Lord. Let's give us some idea what it means to be attracted to the Lord. So I was going to look at the rivers to the sea and some other analogies that are given, and then to look at how we can cultivate what's already there. Actually, Rupa Goswami says that this love of God, it's already there in our heart. It's not something to be gained from any other source. It's just a question of awakening it. So rivers to the sea, of course, I'm sure each of us is familiar with who gives this analogy. Well, Krishna in the Gita gives it in a very different context. So Krishna in the Gita gives rivers to the sea in the context that we're the sea, rather than that we're the rivers. That we're the sea and the rivers are all of our desires and attractions in the world that come to us and that we're not affected by them. So that's quite different. Kapila Dev. Somehow I didn't find Kapila Dev. How is he describing? He did. Oh, I didn't find it. If you can tell me the verse number for that, that would be nice. I was thinking first and foremost about Kunti. That Kunti was asking for her devotion to be like that. She said, I want my devotion to be like what? The Ganges. She says, I want my devotion to be like the Ganges that's just going to go to the sea without being diverted anywhere. Now, of course, most rivers do have diversions. Most rivers have little branches and diversions, and rivers end up with things called oxbows, where there's a diversion that then gets cut off from the main river. And this is exactly what happened with the lake that Kalia was in. The lake of the Yamuna that Kalia was in had been cut off from the main flow. Otherwise, everything would have been poisoned everywhere. So rivers do tend to sometimes diverge and not make it to the sea. It does happen. But Kunti's talking about the main force of the Ganges, that she says, I want to have attraction to you like a river going to the sea. Where another place where Krishna does talk about rivers is in the same context is to the gopis at Kurukshetra. When Krishna goes, Krishna writes a letter with Uddhava to the gopis, and he also preaches to the gopis directly at Kurukshetra. And each of these instructions that Krishna gives to the gopis is actually very relevant and very useful for all of us. And at Kurukshetra, he says, just have your minds go to me like rivers to the ocean. And if you're absorbed in me in that way, you'll never really feel separation from me. That internally have this pull. In the prayers of the personified Vedas, they also talk about how our attraction to the Lord is like rivers to the sea. And Ujjvala, which is quoted in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjvala is one of the main companions of Krishna. And although he's listed as one of Krishna's main companions at Priya Narmasaka, there's not that. We usually talk about Subal and not so much about Ujjvala. The writings of the Goswamis tend to concentrate just on certain personalities. Have you noticed that? Like even in the Leela, they'll talk mostly about Lalita and not even as much about Vishaka, and what to speak much about, like Sudevi or Indulekha, or, they're concentrating on certain persons. So we find the writings of the Goswamis, although they mention Subal and Ujjvala as being the two chief gopas, they're concentrating more on Subala. Anyway, so Ujjvala says to Krishna, he says, Krishna, the gopis are just like rivers, and you're just like the ocean. Also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when the devotees would come to Jagannath Puri during the Chaturmas for the Rath Yatra, they were compared like rivers coming all over to the ocean. So if we think about this comparison, it's very difficult to stop a river going to the ocean. I mean, if you want to stop a river, you have to make a very large arrangement, isn't it? You have to do something very complicated to build a dam to stop a river. And as soon as you open up the dam, or as soon as there's a crack in the dam, the river it will just go, isn't it? Right? It's its natural inclination. We have, of course, in the modern world, the Army Corps of Engineers, they try to control the movements of a river to prevent flooding and so forth and so on. But this is its natural course. And even if a river reaches a cliff, it keeps going. That's what waterfalls are. Waterfalls are the river has reached an impassable obstacle of a cliff, and it just goes over it. It finds stones and whatever, and it just goes around it and over it and under it. I mean, one of the most satisfying things, at least for me, I remember years ago, an devotee Ayurvedic doctor says, what makes you happy? And he says, forget about Krishna consciousness. This is what makes you happy. And I said, being in a forest by a flowing river as it's going over the rocks. So if you've ever sat like that, like you go on Poet's Walk and you can sit by the river, right? You see it going over the rocks. It doesn't matter what obstacles are in the way. Like I say, it's a really big effort with a really big dam to stop a river. And even then, it's artificial, because as soon as there's a gap, it will go through. So our love for Krishna should be like that. Generally, what we do is we complain about our rocks and cliffs, right? We just say, well, I can't really love Krishna because my parents aren't supportive, or I have to go to school, or I have too many attachments, or I have this, I have that, and the other thing. But if we're really like a river, it wouldn't matter. We would love Krishna anyway. And these examples, many, many times devotees will say to me, how can I be a devotee, with the husband that I have, or with the wife that I have, or with the child that I have? I know one devotee who tells me that his little 1-year-old child as his main impediment to being a devotee. And seriously, it's like, okay. And I said, well, in the spiritual pastimes, there's impediments. We're just about to see how the brahmanas are going to try to stop their wives. Right? The gopis' husbands, they try to stop them. Many of us who came to Krishna consciousness, Maris was speaking about this the other day, right? How we had to disobey our parents, wasn't it? My father gave his blessings, but my mother didn't. My mother was strongly opposed for 8 years, and then weakly opposed for another 2. The reason my mother became favorable is that we bought our own house and we bought our own car, and my husband had a job working for Ford Motor Company, and I was running a preschool. So at least she didn't have to say to people, my daughter's panhandling Hindu books on the New York subways, And the thing that really switched her was one time we were visiting her, and she sat down to watch the news, and she said, will you watch, and we didn't leave the room. We sat down and watched it with her. So that was the final turning point. She decided that we were normal. So, we had to go against our families. Yes, we had to go against societies, against the norms of society. It's not that it was without opposition. And in the early days of ISKCON, to go out on the streets in saffron robes and nose rings and tilak, and, it was outrageous. We were going against the whole norms of society, and many devotees were kidnapped in attempts at deprogramming and things like that. In some parts of the world, devotees were put in prison and beaten and tortured. Tell us where you're printing your books. Even now, in some parts of the world, it's like that. There's in the old days when I used to travel. So, there's one place I would go to in the world where it's illegal. Actually, I've been to many places in the world where Krishna consciousness is illegal. But one of these places, so we'd have a huge gathering, 1,000 people, at least, maybe 2,000. And we'd have to have the big banner over the stage that said personality development. So we're having kirtans, and there's books being sold and CDs and all different programs going on. And then when somebody from the government walked in, within 30 seconds of that person walking in, all the sannyasis had put on Western street clothes. The people on the stage switched to singing Indian Bollywood songs. All the devotional books and CDs were away. It was just like, everything just switched. So there's opposition. There's always going to be opposition. Like with Prahlad, his father was trying to kill him. You talk about child abusers, it was, but if you're a river going to the sea, no matter what opposition there is, you go over it, around it, under it. You may have a waterfall. And the flow of the river to the sea is one of the most beautiful things. It's beautiful visually. It's musical, isn't it? When the river goes around the rocks and over, it makes music. It makes rainbows. There's one national park in America that when the sun shines on a particular waterfall, it looks like a fall of fire. And so Srila Prabhupada states that Krishna turns all of our obstacles into spiritual service. As we counter these obstacles, as we go around and under, then our love for Krishna gets stronger and sweeter and more beautiful and more musical. So, people think, well, why are there obstacles? But it's actually, without obstacles, there's no story. The whole concept here of paramour love, para means other, amor means love. Some other love means that there's an obstacle. Krishna seems to create these obstacles even in the spiritual world. And you can say, well, what about if the obstacle is so strong that it's a dam? And that happens sometimes, under Kamsa, under Vena, under Hiranyakashipu, devotees were actually forbidden from any kind of public display of devotion. And some of these rulers, they stopped all yajnas. They would cut down the trees. Hiranyakashipu, he was cutting down the trees. He was killing the cows. He was burning down the Brahmins' villages. And then if your water like a river is behind the dam, like we're going to read, one of these Brahmin ladies, she was prevented. The urge gets even stronger. So here we come to another allegory that Vitrasura gives. He says that our longing for the Lord is like a little baby bird that doesn't have its wings. It can't go anywhere. It's stuck in the nest. It's obstructed. And it's waiting for its parents to return with food. That yearning. Or he gives the example of a calf that's tied up. Again, it's obstructed. It's tied up. And it's milking time, and the calf wants to drink the milk. The calf is waiting until it can. There's this mother is waiting for it to be untied. Or the wife whose husband is away from home for a long time. And she's morose. When is he going to come home? When is he going to come home? When is he going to come home? So when there's some kind of obstruction that you can't surpass, you can't fly out of the nest, you can't cut the rope, you can't make your husband come home sooner, and you're just hankering. When is there going to be a break in this dam that I can go to the Lord? And that hankering itself actually means that there's not really an obstruction. In that extreme state of hankering, one sees the Lord. As it said, I think Srimati Radharani said, when I'm with Krishna, I see one Krishna. When I'm in Krishna, I see many, 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 many Krishnas. And Prahlad Maharaj also gives an allegory. Anybody know what Prahlad Maharaj's allegory is? Iron to a magnet. When his teachers tell him, what are you doing? Why are you worshiping Vishnu? He says, it's iron to a magnet. I can't help it. So this is our natural position. Our natural position is to be a river to the sea, an iron to the magnet, a baby bird or a baby cow for its mother, a wife for a husband. This is our natural situation. Of course, Rupa Goswami also gives the allegory of two young lovers, or husband-wife, yuvati namita yuni yuvam cha yuvato yata manobaramate tadvan manume ramatam twayi. And like Kunti's prayer, where she's asking to be a river. So Rupa Goswami is saying, let me have love for you like the young man and the young woman have love for each other. And since the beginning of time, it's in the Shastras and throughout all history, both fiction and nonfiction, this urging of the young woman for the young man, isn't it? Right? I remember when I was young, there was this song, ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you. That's the mood. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, where they had all these obstacles, but I need to be with you, even if it kills me, which it did. And this is this hankering that never mind that there's some taboo from the society, never mind that there's some restriction by the family, never mind that there's a geographical restriction, whatever it is, that the attraction between a man and a woman will be so strong. So between the baby and the mother, between the man and the woman, between the river and the sea. Sometimes the rivers are compared to the wives and the sea to the husband. And an object like iron to a magnet. And this attraction for Krishna is called Krishna, all attractive. It's already there. It's already there. Now, the problem is that we're instead trying to have that attraction to Krishna's energy separate from him, which is a very unnatural and unsatisfying situation. We were talking about this yesterday in reading Bhagavad Gita, our Bhakti Shastri class in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, where Krishna lists 35 ways that we can see him in the world. And he says, I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the butter, I am the fire, I am the offering, I'm the mother, I'm the father, I'm the grandfather, I'm the syllable Om, I'm the purifier, I'm the resting place, I'm the abode, I'm the dear friend. Now, people appreciate their home, yeah? Krishna says, I am the abode. So people appreciate their home. They're out at work all day and they open their door and there's their spouse and they're, I'm home. So what are they appreciating? Krishna, but they're doing it indirectly. They're just appreciating Krishna's energy. Or I am the light of the sun. Krishna, people appreciate, oh, the sun's rising, the sun's setting, the sun is shining. I'm grateful for the sun. But it's indirect. They're not appreciating, oh, Krishna's the sun, Krishna's the abode. I've been really meditating how Krishna's the resting place. Like you just like, ah. But when we appreciate and are grateful for and try to relish things separately from Krishna, we just become frustrated. If we're having this attraction that's meant for Krishna, for our spouse, for our child, for our phone, I mean, for a lot of us, our phone and our computer is like that, isn't it? It's like this magnet. I have to check my phone. I have to check my phone. Or people are attracted like this to a car or to a country. And people are literally giving their lives for their country, isn't it? They give their right arm for their country, literally. Or their mind or their face in war. And then we're not satisfied. We don't feel fulfilled. Our mother, our father, our husband, our wife, our computer, our whatever, it doesn't fulfill us. The beautiful sunrise seen separately from Krishna. It's not fulfilling because it's the wrong way. All these things can be fulfilling if we're first attracted to Krishna. That's what's interesting. Like Srila Prabhupada told my father asked Srila Prabhupada, will loving her son help her to love Krishna? And Prabhupada said, no, but loving Krishna will help her to love her son. When we're deeply attracted to Krishna, then we love all of Krishna's energy. We're grateful for all of Krishna's energy. We have appreciation for all of Krishna's energy in relationship to him. And it's natural in us. But we're the ones artificially putting a dam on it. You know, we're thinking it's the Hiranyakashipus of the world or this or that or the other thing. But we're putting this dam up. We're putting up this obstacle of, I don't want to be attracted to Krishna. And so the attraction's going out everywhere, splayed to Krishna's energy, separate from Krishna. And what we're really feeling is this separation from Krishna, what's really gnawing at us. Like you mentioned how Thomas Merton, he says there's this God-shaped vacuum in our heart. And it's gnawing at us that we don't have this fulfillment. And so what do we try to do? One of my good friends, Tarini Radha, who's the wife of the temple president in Chennai, she was just writing me yesterday how her daughter said that we're really feeling separation from Krishna, and we're just trying to forget that with all of our material so-called enjoyment. We're trying to kind of numb that intense separation, that intense grief we're feeling from our beloved. I love that the word here is priya. The Bhagavatam uses priya many times. It uses priya for the way that a husband speaks to his wife. How actually one devotee who left ISKCON wrote me this heavy email that, you know, there's not enough in the scriptures about men taking care of their wives. It's all about women serving the husbands. And I said, actually, no, and I sent him all my research about what it says in the scripture about how a husband should treat a wife. But one of them is priya. It's very often used like that for the husband to the wife. And here it is for the Brahmanis to Krishna. Someone who's very dear, someone who's very precious, someone who you can't live without. So what are we going to do to restore our original urge? This urge that we're putting on Krishna's energy separate from him. How are we going to restore that? So we could say, well, it's a process of bhakti, but it's a process of bhakti that has to be done with a desire and a sankalpa to restore it. It can't be done just simply as a ritual. That doesn't work. We're not trying to be just, you know, karmakandis, just pious people. Right? In the Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva tells the Prachetas that if you do your swadharma perfectly for 100 births, you can become Lord Brahma. Great, you get to be the God of the universe, you know. So we're not just trying to do ordinary dharma. We're not just trying to do ordinary religion. We're not just saying, well, okay, I'll do my religion and when I die, I'll achieve. No, we should have it for this. I want my attraction to be drawn to you like a river to the sea. I want to have this mood of the Brahmins' wives. Oh, Krishna's hungry? Krishna's hungry? Let me give the best I have. We have Bahu Guna, right? Bahu means many. Guna means qualities. Let me bring the best food. Let me bring the best, whatever it is that we're bringing. If we're a cook, we're bringing the best food or the best clothes and the best decorations or the best writing or the best, whatever it is we're doing, or the best cleaning or the best fighting. Right? I was told my grandson-in-law last night, I said, I just came from killing demons. Right? Isn't that what we were doing? We were killing demons. I was killing demons yesterday, actually. It's kind of gross. Smashing them in there. Gross things. Some mealy bugs. So whether we're fighting for Krishna and killing the demons who are sucking the life out, trying to suck the life out of Tulsi, or whether we're, embroidering, or whether we're making ghee wicks, or whether we're doing laundry, to do it with this mood of I want to be the Ganges going to the sea, without just for Krishna, just for Krishna, just for Krishna, and not to worry because Krishna includes everyone. And therefore, when I just love Krishna, I will love everyone. I will appreciate everyone. I will appreciate everything, but I'll do it in the proper perspective. I don't need to be many branched. And to have that in our mood when we're chanting japa, when we're in the kirtan, when we're doing our service. I want to go to Krishna like this river to the sea. And when I used to be a big book distributor in the early days, and we would distribute Krishna book, my favorite picture to show was this one. We'd always show the George Harrison preface, and then I would always turn to this picture of the Brahmana's wives coming with the food for Krishna. I always thought it was a very attractive picture, this mood of them. And of course, I don't want to get into this much today, but just that Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that these Brahmin wives had conjugal affection for Krishna, which of course socially was outrageous. They were Brahmanas, he was a Vaishya, they were married women. And so at least for the Brahmana's wives, unlike the gopis, they kept this internally. They went, as Maharaj was talking the other day, I think it was you, yeah, about Raghunath Das Goswami, and was that you? Or was that somebody else? Yeah. That, they were keeping this mood internally. That I want to have this kind of relationship with Krishna while they were going ahead and being, normal, righteous people in the world. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that the Shastra gives us these analogies so we can very much relate our experience to Krishna consciousness. When I see the baby crying for the mother, when I see the wife hankering for the husband who's away from home, when I see even the little rivers here that are flowing toward the sea and flowing over and under the rocks, I can have everything be an udipan. I can have everything be an impetus. Yes, I want to love Krishna like that. Yes, I want to love Krishna like that. Yes, I want to love Krishna like that. The other day, a devotee contacted me that she had had a completely normal pregnancy, and then she and her baby almost died in childbirth. They actually both flatlined. There was a little problem. They transported to the hospital, and they must have picked up a severe infection in the hospital. And she had to have an emergency section, and she couldn't touch the baby for days. And, it was so traumatic for her being separated from her baby. As soon as the baby was born, they whisked the baby away. And so we started meditating on Devaki. So what was it like for Devaki? Each of her babies being killed, then having a miscarriage, and then finally Krishna's there. Finally Krishna's there. She holds him, she feeds him, and then he's gone. And she can't even openly ask for news of him because that will put him in danger. She used to try to get news of him in a clandestine way by asking about Balaram. So we can use everything in the world, everything that we experience, to remind us of the truth, to act as an impetus for our engagement in Krishna consciousness. So when we're doing our service, to do it with that desire that I want to just go to Krishna, and to have everything remind us of that desire. Yes, 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 I want to just go to Krishna. So questions, comments, additions, subtractions, chastisements. Yes, Mary. Oh, you found it. Oh, can you read it? Thank you. That's 329, 329, 11 to 12. Thank you. So there, Lord Kapila Deva was giving the example of the Ganges, like Kunti did. Thank you. Nice to see your family. Yes, Vistapu. Yes. The only impermeable desire, the only impermeable obstacle is that we don't want to go to Krishna. No, I don't want to. Yes. We were giving, Vitrasur is giving the example of the baby bird or the baby cat that's yearning to be fed. But sometimes children refuse to eat, right? You've raised kids. They just won't eat. They're hungry. They're cranky because they're hungry, right? And you put them in their little chair and you get out the prasadam and you try to feed them and they just, or they just won't do it. We're afraid. If I just go to Krishna, what will happen to this or that or the other thing? Yes. Well, the way the pure devotees change it, from what I understand, several ways. First of all, they ask Krishna to give us mercy. And then Krishna gives us a little taste that maybe we don't even deserve. Gives us a little free sample and says, do you like this? And we're like, what was that? Wow. And also from the other side of our self-created dam, Prabhupada calls it self-created duties, we might peer over the top of our self-created dam and see the great devotees on the other side happily going into the sea and dancing into the sea. And we can say, ooh, they don't have any of the problems I'm afraid will happen if I break my dam. Look at them, look at them, look at them, look at them, look at them. And maybe then we take a little rivulet and kind of go around the side and just try experimenting. And we go, woohoo, that's nice. So I see in those two ways that the pure devotee asks Krishna to give us mercy, and then by their example, by their instruction, by their inspiration, we get some faith. Yes. His hesitancy. Yes. And I mean, I experienced this one time with Srila Prabhupada, when it's a long story. I don't have time to tell the whole story, but it was at the airport in New York. And there was just a small group of us, 15, maybe 20. And We were in the lounge that was under construction. And so we were the only ones there. Srila Prabhupada was on a sofa, on a couch, and I was to Prabhupada's left. I mean, a foot and a half away. I was sitting to Prabhupada's left, and our oldest son, Murari, was on my lap. He was just an infant. And Srila Prabhupada, it's a long story. It's a wonderful story. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada asked for a kirtan. And Jai Satchidananda led the kirtan. And he was singing the Guru Vastika, and then he sang the Guru Vandana. And Prabhupada was responding in the kirtan. Jai Satchidananda was leading the kirtan. And Prabhupada was playing kartals, and he was playing them on the side. He was trying to play very quietly. Again, that's a long story, but he was playing them on the side very, very quietly. And he had his head down and his eyes closed. And I remember first thinking, oh, Prabhupada's singing for his guru. You know, because when we were singing, we were always singing for Prabhupada. Prabhupada's singing for his guru. And then as soon as I thought that, I don't know how to explain this, but the airport disappeared. And New York disappeared. And all time and space disappeared. And I wasn't in this world anymore. I was in the spiritual world. I mean, it was quite an experience. And I still don't know how long it lasted for. So, you know, we have this grace. By the grace of the pure devotee, Krishna may arrange to give us a little glimpse of something beyond our hesitancy that then impels us. Oh, I want that. A spurti. Spurty. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Radha Golokananda.